Hello, and welcome to Aakash and Friends podcast. This is one of the last 10, 12 episodes we're doing, and it's very special because today we have somebody from our team who is finally agreed. I tried Utkarsh and Gaurang and Varun, and nobody was willing to do this. But Anshu, thank God for you, Anshu. You are willing to do this. Welcome on the show, Anshu. By the way, it's Anshu Patni Singhi or APS, not Pradumna.
Thank you, Akash. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what answers I get out of you for this because you are the most experienced person that I have worked with so far. So I'm very excited for this. Thank you for this. Genuinely thank you for doing this because I feel like we were having that discussion about all the different ladies I have asked to do this and how many of them ended up saying no. So it's just nice to have a woman who's working and like vocal for once.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a pleasure to be on the show. And I think I'm just a little worried as to what to say and what not to say because both of us talk a lot. So I'm just like, okay, we'll
so
see how it goes.
we have an editor, no? It's okay.
Yes, Gaurang's going to take care of that.
Yes, Gaurang. Uh, so what is a good place to? I think usually I feel like going with a chronological order with all my guests because I feel
Okay,
like that is the best way to go about understanding how life has progressed. So where
okay.
does it start with you? What state were you born in?
Rajasthan.
In the village only or in a city?
No. I mean, I don't mind if I would have been. I was born in Jodhpur. That's
Okay.
where my dad was posted,
Hmm.
and yeah, I did my schooling in pretty much a lot of places in Rajasthan. Went to Delhi for my college, and then in Bombay for the last
You've
11.
gotten so far ahead. We are still in Jodhpur only. Chill, chill.
Okay,
How
okay,
long were
that's
you in
correct.
Jodhpur for?
Sorry.
How
I
long were
think
you there?
a lot of my, youth pretty much, not exactly in continuation, but yeah, I would say easily 10 to 12 years.
Is
Easily. But
is
because
Jodhpur like
that was in
a
a
yeah,
transferable job, so we kept shuffling between different cities, etc.
mainly in Rajasthan though?
Yes.
That's an interesting context to be born into, no? Like your family is already used to shifting at this point. So you're growing into this culture where everybody is used to shifting as well.
Yeah, every 2 years you shift.
And you had a elder brother or a younger brother?
I have two elder brothers.
So that must have made it easier because you had people who were similar size of you who were saying कि नहीं ऐसा रहता है दुनिया. Or was it weird कि like you were growing up in a house कि जहाँ हर 2 साल तुम्हें सब उखाड़ के
Not
दोस्त.
really. I think you're born with that sense of adaptability and all. Yes, of course, it was great having two elder brothers, but I would say it was more of my mom who was the influence than the brothers.
Hmm. And you're saying it was completely like so, but then the contrast must apply, right? Where what happens, like I think Delhi would have been an at least a 3 to 5 year stint if you were studying there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so what
Studying and then
happened
also.
between those two ages? So for 10 to 12 years in small towns in Rajasthan, and then college is I'm assuming when you're 17. तो बीच में 5 साल.
Yeah, 17 plus. Yeah.
तो 5 साल बीच का.
I mean, we've lived in Jodhpur, Jaipur. There's a place called on the border of Rajasthan called Badmer. So pretty much these three. So I've done my graduation from Jaipur and then moved to Delhi for my masters. So it was just like you're living in these different cities. Of course, before I was born, my dad had done stint in Jaisalmer and Ajmer and all of that. Yeah, Ajmer also when I was like 2-3 years old. So yeah, different cities pretty much. So it's not just like I've not given you exact
Yeah,
chronological order,
that's okay.
but
But it's
yeah,
it's just interesting to me that you would have been here in the 80s and the early 90s and stuff, right?
thanks,
Like,
Akash.
and I'm just no, I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I inaccurate? Is it
This
70s?
is
Is it
this is a
90s?
regular discussion between you and I about age. So
No,
I
no,
I'm
it's not.
completely surprised that you're bringing this up.
I'm just saying that you were there at a very interesting time in the country's history. As most
Hmm.
decades tend to be in this country, they're very interesting decades. And I'm
Hmm.
just saying that at that point, you might have felt the disparity between a small town and a biggish city kind of situation a little more than, say, I would have growing in Mumbai.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, both in a good and a bad way. I
Hmm.
would say good way because it's the foundation that I'll always be grateful for. Uh, uh, but bad, because I wouldn't say bad. Bad is a very strong word, but I would say, maybe a little bit more exposure at that time when you were growing up, to be able to choose, etc. But I mean, I'm talking about the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. So, but I would say I had, if I compare it to some of my cousins who lived here, I would say, if you're actually looking at, I know I'm contradicting myself, but in terms of what we could learn, what we could do was fabulous.
Right. I mean, also it helps to be part of a family where, I mean, if your dad is in the cops, like he's a cop and he's not a small level cop, he's a decent level cop. So that in itself, I think, would have added to like a sense of cushioning wherever you went, right? Like,
I mean, as a girl, I think that was too much of a cushioning because
yeah.
also I guess because you're in smaller cities, you go to any city, like you go to any part of the town, people would know you, who you
Hmm.
are, or whose daughter you are, irrespective. But I guess, I mean, there would, and at that time, if you're, say, for example, living in Jodhpur, there would only be two or three of the best schools. It's not like Bombay, wherein area-wise schools hota hai, right?
Yeah.
So some of the best schools would be, or I would say at that time, English medium schools were only two, or those convent schools were only two. So
Hmm.
everybody would know everybody. If you go to a restaurants which were hardly there, I remember, when we were in school, I think there was only one or two good restaurants which were there, and it was like a party. अगर हम लोग साल में एक बार या दो बार कभी चले गए तो, I don't remember going out too much with my parents.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think so. It was the culture at that time and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a party if you had to go to, like, so there was
Were these restaurants where they had an aquarium in the restaurant, even though you couldn't eat any of the fish in the aquarium?
so no, in fact, since we're talking about Jodhpur, there was a place called Frigo in Jodhpur where they had amazing pastries. And all I remember going, and this is like very young, when I would have been maybe 7, 8 years old. And the only thing we used to go there to eat was those pastries and cakes, because they were as scarce as, any other exotic dish. I mean, nothing is scarce now in this world
Yeah.
today, but like having a pastry was quite a unique thing to do at that
Yeah.
Then there was another restaurant which was, which used to give you your regular pav bhajis and all of that, but बहुत कम होता था कि हम लोग गए हैं and we would have eaten. But those were beautiful times.
But compared to
Valued.
when you have that life in a sheltered kind of like a small town, and then Delhi for college must have felt like a were you living with family or with in a hostel in Delhi?
So initially for first 2 years with family, but
Mm-hmm.
later I was, on my own and PG and
How
all. So
did
it's
that
been,
freedom feel compared to all of those years?
honestly, I never felt I didn't have freedom. So I guess it's got to do with the upbringing I had, because I think my parents are absolute rock stars, and the way my mom especially brought me up, I didn't feel any different than my own brothers. So it
Hmm.
wasn't कि मेरे लिए कुछ specific guidelines थी या उनके लिए थी. So we first were in Jaipur. That's when we started doing college. I started doing college, and then I moved to Delhi for my masters. But it wasn't really different. You were studying. You were also, I always knew what I wanted to do, etc., etc. So
What
you
is
were
it that
busy.
you wanted to do at this point in your life?
Which point?
If you always knew, then any point would have given the same answer. So I'm
Not really.
assuming
I
there were
mean,
a few,
expressions of interest can change,
right?
but I think there's one thing that I have known, and to a lot of girls or to a lot of women, it sounds very obvious right now. But since I was maybe 7, 8, or जब से मुझे समझ है, I used to tell my mom that I want to become a working woman, right?
Right.
Now, for a lot of women, this is very normal today. But I'm talking about 25, 28 years back, easily, when women from Marwadi families, or even
Oh,
general, right?
my
Uh,
building is full of Marwadi people. All got
yeah,
married by 19 and 20 and 21 and.
yeah, would be rare for them to work, right?
Hmm.
To have that kind of financial freedom.
Yeah.
Uh, and also maybe continue to work after you have a
After
child.
marriage, yeah.
After marriage,
Oh,
and
so
of course
after a
after
child, तो
child, तो
yeah,
मतलब सब खत्म ही हो जाता है, मतलब
yeah.
कुछ बचता ही नहीं है. So I think the only thing I knew since I was a kid was I wanted to work, I wanted to be financially independent. Partly because I used to see my mom who was like, who was constantly doing something the other, teaching, and in spite of my dad's transferable job, etc. So uh, that was like one of the strongest, I would say, belief or the value system that I carried throughout, whether it was school or college or later down now also.
I feel like there's more coming. I'm waiting.
No, no, there's not.
But then what? So then, what did you study in Delhi?
So I did my master's from this college called Delhi School of Communication,
Okay.
which is a very beautiful concept of teaching communication and arts and everything around media and communications, wherein we learned about culture, we learned about the overall media industry, etc. And then that's when I started with advertising. So my first, actually before advertising, my first internship. So they had a very interesting concept of interning while you study for the 2 years when you do masters. So by the time I had graduated and I had done my masters, I had already like interned and worked at 3 or 4 different companies. So my first ever job was with a company called Encyclopedia Britannica. Uh, yeah, and uh, beautiful. And I think I will. Yeah, I mean, I'll always be like, I'll have a little soft corner for that place always, though I mean it's shut and all of that stuff. But and then I moved to advertising, started with JWT, worked under uh, someone called Ashutosh Sahani, who's like now an industry veteran in advertising, and he taught me a lot. It was a very, very brief stint. This was on Pepsi, but he taught me a lot. And then yeah, advertising happened for the next 2-3 years.
And then you realize we are working towards the end of the story, which is the misfortune of being my agent. उसके बीच में बहुत कुछ हुआ है. You don't just end up at rock bottom. Things happen to you.
Yeah, most of the times things happen to me. So, but they're all beautiful. So I wouldn't like kind of change any of those.
So all of this happened in Delhi only. All this ad stuff
All
also
this
happened
is
in Delhi.
advertising is all Delhi. So JWT, McCann, Ogilvy. There was this smaller branch of Ogilvy called Brand David, which Josie Paul had launched and all of that. So Brand David. We'd launched CN and IBN at that point of time. So media was always part of what I did, etc. I think with advertising, I learned about consumer insights and understanding people, etc. Of course, a lot of my upbringing kind of helped me in terms of smaller town insights, consumer insights, etc. And then and then I came to Bombay, and yeah, rest is history.
No, it's not. It's part of. That's what this podcast is, madam. Don't just rest is history me and walk away. This is not some. It's not allowed.
Nobody has. I'm just like, okay, I haven't spoken about all of this to anybody ever.
I know. I have heard this a lot from a lot of guests, but somebody has to ask. No, that is why I'm here. By the way, patrons, if you are watching this, thank you for contributing to keep this alive. Anshu is one of the people who always asks me, "पर ये AMF का क्या मतलब क्यों मतलब कैसे?" And I hope now you realize it's so that these questions that nobody's asking you can be asked.
I hope people will watch this, considering. I can't give too much of background information on Aakash right now.
Okay, so just to give you a idea, okay, just to rather clarify this a little. Did you move to Bombay knowing you had a job, or did you move to Bombay looking for a job?
No, neither of it.
Okay.
I moved to Bombay because I got married, and I came because of the guy.
And was it a love marriage or an arranged marriage?
Technically an arranged marriage.
So it's an arranged love marriage.
No, it was an arranged marriage, but our families knew each other, so our grandfathers kind of arranged.
They loved each other.
They loved each other, absolutely.
As yeah, Rahul Subramanian ka mast joke is. Anyway, so then and you didn't want to keep doing advertising in Mumbai.
No, I think, Akash, one of the things that I've learned, when you were changing, I know it's a very weird way to think, and a lot of people might not agree to this, but when you are changing cities, and there's something called as adaptability, right? And you evolve. I think for me, it was very clear I wanted to work and be around what I know, etc. So it's not that I planned media. Media just happened when I came to Bombay. I knew what I can offer, etc. And that's when I joined Reliance Broadcast.
Right. But then, so it was an active decision on some level कि अब advertising नहीं, अब इस शहर में this is the best thing I can do.
Not really, no, no. If I would have, honestly, at that time, I'm talking about 12 years back. At that time, something else would have been. If I had something as enticing as advertising, I would have done. But somewhere I think I always felt, even because I was on the servicing side, land servicing side, I always felt that maybe. Sorry, I'm just checking. Yeah, I always felt that maybe I need to move to the brand side more, and I did have that experience because when I left Delhi, I was working with this company called Vatika, which is one of the biggest real estate developers in the northern region, etc. They're the brand which kind of launched Western in India. So we launched 2 properties and all. So by then I had already moved on to the brand side, marketing, etc.
Right.
So I think somewhere, I wanted to kind of take up more marketing and, insight related roles. So eventually that only happened. Particularly media marketing is happened because I was in, because it was Reliance.
Right. And but I see this trend where with working women who were in my mom's generation, it's like, oh, you had to get married. Obviously, you're going to get married. Like it was like one of those things. That's one end of the spectrum almost. And the other end of the scale is people who are part of my generation and younger to me now, who women who think क्या जरूरत है कि नहीं, marriage is no longer कि like, and of course you have to get married. That is not there anymore. Where did you fall in on this scale? Did you feel like you were ready to get married when you did? Was there a lot of pressure? How did Puneet have to woo you?
He still not wooed me in the last year. But no. So I think it was very normal. I don't think so. I thought about it too much. I was too. I would say I was too under the. So for me, my parents are my father and my mother are people I would mostly listen to. Right? I idolize my father. I idolize my mother, and for me, it was always any decisions. Of course, there are multiple decisions which I've taken against them, or which they've not agreed, and I've gone ahead. But they've given me that freedom to choose. But I think somewhere also the fact that the Marwadi in me, knew that this is a normal part or the evolution of this thing, and I am somebody who's always wanted a home and family, and also marriage was something which is normal. I think the only things my parents always had or were worried initially at that time when they were looking, and of course they also gave me the choice that if you have somebody, please let us know. I didn't have anyone, so clearly,
how do you even have time when you're in advertising? I can imagine, especially with you being the kind of workaholic that you are.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how much you must have worked when you were single and unmarried, because this mommy Anshu
nothing
is
has
this.
Changed.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. Trust me, marriage hasn't changed at all. And I think I've told you so many instances, over the years wherein nothing has changed. In fact, if worse, it has become worse because of the way who Puneet is and how he's pushed me to kind of go and chase what I want to, etc. But yeah, it was just part of the evolution. I think the only thing was that I always wanted a partner who was comfortable, or who would be
supportive,
who would look forward to my dreams as much as his.
Which is interesting because it's still something that not just as men and as women, but I think even as men, we still something we aspire to that. That's not our default setting as people yet. Ki like obviously you will support your partner in goals. in a constructive way. And it's something that still takes, like, it takes years for people to realize that. Was that quick with you all? Was it like a topic of conversation right up कि देखो मैं काम करेगी और मेरे को support मांगता है, और वरना फिर ये there's no point in, or was it something that you kind of snuck in later?
No, I think it was the same thing from both our ends. I wanted, I was always very ambitious, and I love my work, and I think that's one of the things that thrives me. And my husband also wanted a partner who's equally invested in her work, and
Yeah.
he never wanted a housewife. So
Sounds
I
like
guess,
my kind of guy.
and he was very clear. I mean, with all due respect, he was very clear that I don't want anyone who does part time or work from home, kind of. He said, I want somebody who can, who goes and this thing. And with all due respect to people who work from home and all, and I've also done it in phases of life. But he said that, I mean, this is something that, I would want. And I guess that was the first thing that clicked, and everything else we made it happen.
Yeah. You may have. I love it. I love that there are. No, but it's true. Like, it's great because,
That's
you
the
know,
truth.
and I love that you use that phrasing, because you have to make these things happen. Like a good relationship doesn't
Sorry,
just
I'm having
happen.
water.
You can listen to me. This is the part where I rant. Relationships need not be, things don't just fall into place all the time, every time. 99.9% things in life require actual work. You have to work on it, towards it. I was having this conversation recently with a friend of mine with regards to the boy that she is seeing, and she was, the guy was feeling very guilty about something, that he missed something, and then she was feeling guilty that she was making him feel guilty. She's like, oh, he's
Feel guilty.
humoring me, and all. I'm like, if he's feeling guilty, maybe he's just feeling guilty because he wants to be better for you. Like, and being in love with someone is an excuse to become a generally better person as well sometimes. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
if he feels
Yes.
guilty about fucking up, then that's him not just feeling guilty in context to you. Thankfully, it's in context to you. If it would be somebody else, he would not feel guilty and not try to improve.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
you, so just be happy that at least he's gonna try and improve, and you're not humoring someone by doing that. It's just a love is a motivator more than anything else. Okay, my rant
Yeah.
is over. uh,
I know those kind of, and I can't imagine these kind of conversations you have with so many people.
oh yeah, I this is my favorite activity. Tell me all your feelings. I am very excited to hear your feelings.
Yeah.
uh, is Mumbai hard to get used to? I mean, because
I
you're
don't
getting
think
used
there's
to a lot,
any
right?
city. I don't think so. There's any city that's hard to get used to. For me,
Yeah.
it's never the same. It's never
And
the case.
even though you're also getting used to married life, and you're also getting used, were you living with your in-laws at that time? So you were saying in 11 years of being married.
Almost 12 actually
Huh.
now. I lived with my in-laws for almost 7 years. In between, we lived in Malaysia for a year. That's when again I was, this is in between uh, two jobs. But so we've done a little bit of traveling here, there, all of that. So I lived with them, but I guess it was amazing. And then we moved out around 5 years back. So I've seen both. I've seen the both of worlds, whatever that is.
Was it annoying initially to live with in-laws and a new husband and all these strangers in the house?
Absolutely. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, it is. It's difficult to adjust when you
Right.
are, so independent, etc. All of that. And of course, I mean, even if you're not with in-laws, it's like, three or four set of people, different personalities live together in the same house.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of the fact that we decently got along well. And that's why we lived for 7 years, 8 years. And we moved out also because obviously, the families were growing and all of us needed space, etc. But yeah.
And Malaysia happened because you were doing something, or because your husband was doing something, or
My husband was doing something, and I
okay.
had quit from Reliance, and I wanted to take a break because, I just wanted to take a break.
How was
Um,
Reliance? What all did you work on there?
So I was in Reliance for almost 2 years. Worked with two wonderful gentlemen. So I was working with a guy called Arjun Paran. He's now moved out, and he's one of the top shot producers. He produces a lot of Marathi films. has been doing a lot of stuff on Z5 and a lot of other this thing. But Arjun was one of the bosses I'd always be, and I'm sure I'm going to send this clipping to him. So I'm saying that he's one of the bosses I actually learned sales from uh, in my initial this thing. He's fabulous. He taught me so much that I'll always be indebted to what I learned from him. So Arjun and I were working together on Big Live. We put together some of the biggest televised IPs, you would say. So around 8-9 years back, the 31st December slot used to be like uh, you do special programming and all. We are the first ones to actually start uh, uh, with a proper award show on the 31st night. So we went and created this property called the Big Star Entertainment Awards with Star Plus. Tarun Katyal was my boss at that time. Tarun was, of course, the CEO of Reliance in that time, and oh, what a guy! But Tarun went and sold this property to Star, and we kind of executed it. This I think we did it for 5 years. It's a 5-year deal, etc. But we I think did it in straight like a 1 month's time, but the ratings at that time kind of went and cut across all other shows on that time slot. Also 31st December slot, etc. But like it started with a bang there.
Was this
There were a
shot
lot of
on 31st? Was it a live telecast thing or was it shot beforehand?
shot.
Okay, yeah, because as we all know, you are a party freak who does not drink or smoke. So I wouldn't want you to miss a 31st night, where you could not be drinking and smoking all night long. To be
Absolutely.
to be at work, which you actually enjoy.
No, we shot it almost like 12, 13 days back, 13 days earlier. We shot it, and the 31st December, the ushering in of the new year was actually brought in by Akshay Kumar, and he kind of came on a horse and, came on the stage and all. And it was nice. I mean, it was unique at that point of time, and of course, it did get us a lot of ratings, but it was a good show, and of course, it went on to do a lot more, good, I would say, content later, the other slots, the other years, which it showed. But I worked on the first one.
But you had so much workload during this time. And I'm assuming Jivisha came somewhere in the middle of this 12 weeks.
No,
She's
no.
six or
Jivisha was
she's
much
what,
later,
6 or 5?
5.5.
Okay, 5.5. So, so then I think in chronologically, I think your mom got sick before Jivisha was born, no?
Yeah, my mom got sick before. Can we cut this part, Akash?
No, not gonna talk about it.
No, I don't. I don't want to talk about mom.
Okay. It's a great thing though.
Uh,
Always leads to some great insights and catharsis for everyone.
okay, talk. Let's talk.
You first talk about it, then see if you want to keep it. I think that's a better approach.
Okay. I've never spoken about it, but yeah.
I think, yeah, that's why it's important to talk about, because I mean, it's a significant event in someone's life, and to have to watch it upfront and up close and play it at itself out over the years, it teaches you a lot of things, and I think that's something that a lot of people can get inspiration from. That's all.
Okay. No, so my mom passed away almost like 9 months after my marriage. She was sick during my wedding. She passed away 9 months after my wedding, and almost 3 months after she passed away is when I started working back. Like when I took, so that was like that 1 year break between shifting from Delhi to Bombay is when I got married. Mom was unwell, etc. I did take a lot of breaks when mom was unwell and she had a chemo, etc. going on.
When did she get diagnosed?
I mean, in the sense, she got diagnosed in, I think, 2006 or something. So between 2006 to 2009, while I continued working, there were times when I took breaks.
Yeah.
Sometimes I resigned also. Like when I actually resigned from Vatika was because of this. Because I wanted to be with her. And I'm glad I did that. And so I was with her, then this marriage thing happened. Thankfully, she moved her entire treatment to Bombay, and then, I could be with her. My brother was there, the elder brother. So we could kind of, figure this. And and then after she kind of passed away around 3 to 4 months later, I kind of joined work back, and that's how I guess I kind of it helped me come out of it.
Yeah. Do you feel like if you hadn't joined work, you could have spiraled?
Yeah,
Or like,
100%.
but though at the same time, I feel like those 3 months would have also been a good idea to take those months and just properly grieve.
No.
Or was there?
See, in case of a cancer patient, you
Hmm.
don't grieve just when the person dies, right?
Yeah.
You grieve at every report that comes, every negative report that comes, every surgery that happens. Of course, it's never same as compared to actually losing that person, but you are so used to grief. You're so. In case of my mother, it was like 3 years of grief between my father and me, uh, and my brothers, that I guess we just got so used to. Of course, there are a lot of changes that happened, after we lost her. But that was not grief. That was change because your life is centered around one person. Uh, but grief, I would say, I still grieve for her. So I don't think so. Those 3 months could have made any difference.
Right.
Maybe only if I could have meditated, things would have been better. That's the only thing that could have helped me. But otherwise, I don't think so. There could have been a better treatment than work. Work is a sort of meditation.
Do you feel like the illness and the fact that it is prolonged in some sense also gives you an opportunity to really work through anything if there was something to be worked through left between you and the family? Or is it that it's just you end up spending that whole time taking care of them and there's really no closure? I mean, was there any closure with her about everything with between the two of you as opposed to between you and your dad or your brother?
No, I think. Uh, See, honestly, every illness is different. So, some people have prolonged this thing. In case of my mother, I think somewhere neither me my or my dad was ready to give up, and we kept trying and trying and trying and trying, which kind of prolonged, while it prolonged a lot of stay for her with us. But she had 6 surgeries in a span of 3 years.
Yeah.
So it did, she kind of suffered a lot. Now, when
Hmm.
I think of it, I feel that if she had to go, maybe she could have just, we could have just let her. But, all those things are never planned. You never would want to let that person go. So in case of my father, who's a warrior, he just kept trying till the last minute, that no, this will be fine. So I guess, that's there. But I don't think so. See, I think with me, my closure happened. I don't know if it's closure. See, of course, that person never goes off your life, etc. And of course, especially if it's your mother, right?
Hmm.
So I don't think so. There was any closure required. She's with me. I feel her all the time. I pray to her, and my 5-year-old daughter also prays to her,
Hmm.
because I feel that's the power. But we didn't tell her till the last moment. I don't know whether we did right or wrong. She knew it though, I feel, but we didn't tell her till the last moment that her cancer's gone, off, etc. All of that. We just let it be, and we wanted her to fight, and she fought it. So yeah.
Yeah, you know how it's been with my grandparents also, like this long drawn out. With my nana and nani, that was years. It was just years and years and years of drawing it out. And I felt like on some level, I see similarities between your dad and my mama also, where it's like till the last minute, you're going to fight to keep this person alive. And sometimes I feel like maybe if we would have just given them a break and just let them pass away 6 months earlier, I think they would have suffered 6 months less. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, but you also have to see, first of all, it was my dad's call, right? He was the one who was losing a partner, one.
Hmm.
And second, my mother was a warrior. She never gave up. She fought till the end.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I guess because she wanted to live and she wanted to fight. So yeah, she never gave up. So
Yeah.
if the person who's suffering never gave up, how could the person who's nursing would give up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we made it through. We're done. It wasn't so bad.
I need water now, definitely.
Yeah, but it wasn't so bad. Hey, man, that's great. I'm proud of you, man. You talked about it. That's great. Yeah, and now you have an interesting prospect because you have this little child in the house who you have all
Yeah.
these stories to tell to about this person, and
Hmm.
I think that must be very interesting to educate
Yeah.
your grandkids about all the different things that happened. Sorry, your kids, not your grandkids.
My
Her
kids, yeah.
grandkids.
There's time for grandkids,
Yeah,
Akash.
yeah. Please let there be all the time in the world.
I know we keep talking about age, but there's still a lot of
Yeah.
time for
No, no.
grandkids.
I meant your parents' grandkids, which is your kids,
Absolutely.
is what I meant.
Yes.
Uh, and do you feel like that? I mean, I personally feel like having a child biologically enhances both parents to deal with life better. Like the
Absolutely,
science is
100%.
right. Like I feel like there is on a hormonal level, you just become and plus once you've taken care of a kid for the first 1 2 years of the constant changing and the bathing and the crying and the feeding and the keep their attention. I had few months of my nephew. I already I have some idea कि like मेरा तो खुद का भी नहीं है and I was losing my shit taking care of him sometimes. Uh, how does that balance work, and how much does it help to have like just house help and all of that during these times? Like it must be a world of difference, right? Because
So,
it's you're the first generation, I would say, who could afford regularly to keep house help for the kids and all. And I feel like when we were growing up, if you remember, there was a sense of like disdain कि family चल रहा है and then पीछे the maid is walking with the kid and all of that, and there used to be some negative impression of that. But as time moves on, like it becomes abundantly apparent कि it's cool to say कि oh, both people should work, but then the child needs
see,
somebody in the
actually, that's
house.
the difference. There's a little bit of a difference. You grew up with an absolute rock star of a working mother, who I need to meet soon, by the way.
Yeah.
But whatever stories I've heard, she's like a go getter kind of a person, right? So was my mother. The only difference was that she gave that freedom to my father to be able to continue his job while she would adjust. Of course, one partner had to.
Hmm.
Uh, but the difference is, in our case, I grew up in almost, like, I would say, I sometimes joke with my dad that I grew up in a British colonial era where there was a lot of help around,
Hmm. Yeah.
huge houses, all
Yeah.
of that. So I actually grew up with a lot of people whom I knew as family who were helps. But so I mean, for me it wasn't very different. The only thing was that we were absolutely schooled very, very nicely how to be with them, and we were told that they are their family. So I guess that part of that training kind of came handy to me when I needed a lot of help in terms of house help, etc.
Hmm.
But I would say, keeping that aside for a second, I think I will say every little bit of thing that I have done is purely because I've had a wonderful support system in terms of my in-laws and my husband. So after I delivered, and this is when I was at Kwan, almost like 2 months into just 2 months after Javisha was born, we had a show with a very with a big lead actor, going on debuting, making his television debut, and it was the talk of the town. And
कौन
I think
बनेगा करोड़पति?
no, and this was, now don't
I'm
start
saying
making
it because
guesses.
it's wrong. That's why I'm saying it. I'm not saying it because it's
Yeah,
right.
but and I think office needed some help, etc. And I went back. I think I kind of went on the first shoot day after almost like 2.5 months of delivering. I was on available on. I kept working till the last 1 hour.
Of
So
course you did. Till the
no,
last
but
hour.
that was
Have some shame.
so I was actually meeting a friend the other day who was my colleague then. And I had messaged before I was going into the delivery room, because mine was
Huh.
a C-section, saying, "Hey, I will not be available for the next 4 hours. This thing, please, excuse." And at first she knew. And after 4 hours, saying, "Hey, blessed with a baby girl." And she's like, "What are you saying?" So it was that. So
Yeah, Jivisha, if you are watching this, I don't know what to say.
but it is what I chose. Honestly, I mean, a lot of people. So this is just before my delivery. I think one of the things that kept me sane was the fact that I was constantly working throughout, and I
Right.
had a beautiful set of people at work. Set of I had a wonderful boss who
Mm-hmm.
understood that, you needed flexibility, and also I was working a lot from home and all of that. It's not that I had to go to office at 9:30 in the morning
Hmm.
every day and, at 5, uh, come back at like, 6 or 7. I had that flexibility. So I guess I was just completely blessed with both things at home and at work. Uh, and I think it's not initially when the child is very small, it's not too much of a hassle because, the child is sleeping and you just need to figure about his or her feed, etc. It's actually now when I feel that she needs more time because she
Hmm.
questions and says, hey mama, can you keep your phone on the side and talk to me please? You just heard before we were
Yeah,
starting
yeah,
the
yeah.
conversation. So yeah, so I guess it's I would say it's now is when she needs me more than uh she would have needed me. Of course every phase and every time is different, but yeah.
Hmm. Okay, I think you know what. I think this makes for a very nice, sweet end to the first half. I think we're going to take a quick break now and come back and talk more about the later half of the career and Kwan and the downward spiral that led to being my manager, sorry,
Don't
agent.
say
And
that.
that's
Don't
how
say.
I let me make my jokes. It's my show. God damn
No,
it!
no. This joke, I will, Gaurang, you need to delete this joke.
Not delete this joke, Gorang. You
This
will
you
keep
will
this
delete
joke
because, no, this you will delete and I'll give you the logic why later. But yeah,
because
this you will
it's
delete.
bad for my branding. Okay, see
It's
you in
bad
the.
for my branding also.
See you on the other side. You're listening to Aakash Mehta and Friends with Anshu Patni Singhi. My name is Aakash Mehta. Hello, hello, hello. Second half AMF. We are back with Anshu Patni Singhi. And if you don't know who Anshu is by now, then she is my agent. She handles all of the brand stuff we do, along with her startup, which is called CHNO Gaming, which also kind of does a lot of the stuff I do, and they manage a lot of other gamers. Before this, she used to work at Kwan, which is a big company that has been in the news for several reasons. Some of them not the right ones, but it's been around. And it's one of the larger management agencies that the country has seen, one of the more professional, large scale ones. Most of Bollywood at some point was managed by Kwan. And at what point in this journey did you get into Kwan at Anshu?
So I joined Kwan in 2012,
Hmm.
and I quit after almost, when did I quit? 18, no? So yeah, after 6 years.
And at what stage of Kwan's genesis was 2000 and
I
this
think
thing?
they were 2 years or 2 years old into so basically when I joined, Kwan had just announced their joint venture with CA,
Right.
and basically when I joined into CA Kwan, and the joint venture went on for almost for 5 years. And by the time I'd left, the JV was over, but it was a wonderful experience working with the entire CA team as well, along with the guys at Quad.
Right. For those of us who don't know what CAA is, could you give some idea of who they are and the kind of talent that they represent internationally?
So CAA is basically creative
Because
artist.
India knows CAA in a very different sense.
Yeah. No, but CAA is Creative Artist Agency. It's one of the, or probably the biggest artist management, agencies or companies in the world. They pretty much manage, I would say, all the big Hollywood guys, from your Steven Spielbergs of the world to, you name the big Hollywood actor. They're a legendary organization, and they have divisions. Of course, they've now CA is more of a media company than just being this thing. They fund films, they fund ventures, media ventures, they back artist-led ventures, etc., etc. But yeah, that's what CA is, and they came to India around 5 years back.
And you got a chance to work with them. And that must have been a very interesting because the way the way artists are in India, like the kind of tantrums that they throw and the kind of the magnanimity that comes with being an artist is far more in India than anywhere else. Because
No,
यहाँ
I
पे
disagree with
नहीं,
that.
you
No,
don't think that
artists.
we have way more celebrity worship, therefore people get away with way more.
No, I think the only difference is the artists across the world are same. Yeah, they are people who are blessed with high amount of talent, because of which they're temperamental. They are I would say they love themselves more than anybody else. And
She's saying
obviously,
all this to the artist she manages, huh?
clearly, but I've told this to you so many times.
Yeah, yeah. Temperamentally, yes, I agree with.
I've told this to you so
Absolutely.
many. There are a lot of things I've told you which you don't like, so let's
That's
not
true.
get onto that. Or I would say I'm probably the only one who says that to you.
This or the only one who thinks it.
But
But like, it must feel like being a sane person in an insane world when you're such a right brain sort of person,
I think
sorry,
it's the set of
left brain.
people you work with around the artist, everything. But it's got to do with your colleagues, the team that you work with, and what keeps you grounded, etc. Uh, Also, it's very different in the way we work here and the way West artists in the West works. Because in India, managers are also the agents most of the times. Of course,
Yeah,
Kwan changed that many years back, but in the West, management agencies are different than the agents.
agencies, yeah,
This
booking
thing
agents.
booking agents. So it's very, very different in how they operate in the West. They're structurally way more strong. But I guess we're getting there in India as well.
Hmm.
And Kwan's done a fabulous job in terms of doing that. So uh, I would say we're getting there. Yeah.
Now, you entered the I don't know what position you entered the organization at, but by the time you left, you were heading the digital, pretty much
So
heading
I
digital for them.
Yeah. So I when I came to Kwan, I was head. I came when I joined them. I joined as the head of the television business.
Okay.
Uh, and by the time I left them, I was heading the television business. I was handling a part of Jam 8. I was handling sales and all for Jam 8, which is Preetham's basically music incubation business.
Hmm.
Preetham and Kwan's music incubation business. I
Okay.
was also handling digital business and agenting a lot of digital artists,
And
etc.
this is probably a time when digital itself was such a small section of the overall landscape. You
Yes.
know.
So and I was also obviously taking care of the content, the digital content business, branded content, etc. at Kwan. So it was multiple things, in the same this thing, within the same role. But it was very, very interesting.
And when you're seeing this, because I mean, clearly, looking at where you are right now, you must have seen this digital turn coming a little before some of the other people.
So
um,
I would say, especially on the branded content side, we were. I mean, as Kwan, we were one of the first people to start that. Of course, things have changed and rapidly this thing, but yeah, we did kind of do a lot of interesting work at the beginning of this entire, curve, as to say.
so if things were going so well, then why go independent at all? I always ask people this because I think it's like, if you I've never had a salary, man. And if I had a salary, I would do so much to keep that salary just to get the same amount of money every month. A lot of my concerns would be dispelled.
I would say the Marwadi in me and the entrepreneur in me
But then
finally
you didn't
took.
come from a entrepreneur Marwadi family, so to speak. Like, your dad was
But
a
I am
cop,
a Marwadi. I am a Marwadi.
right?
So it's exactly telling my dad that, oh, you didn't come from a typical cop family, so why did you become a cop? So I guess defying the genes is probably, I don't know if it's defying the genes also, because I'm definitely not defying the genes,
Yeah.
but I wanted to do. And I think I remember I was telling this to Indranil, who was the CEO at that time in
Hmm.
Kwan, and now he's with and one of the people I really, really admire in the business.
Hmm.
And I was telling him that when he first interviewed me at Kwan many years back, almost now 7 8 years, I don't know, whatever, yeah, 8 years back, he asked me, what do you see yourself, like the typical question. And I was laughing with him, laughing because I told him I want to do something of my own, and which is exactly
Yeah.
how it goes. I don't know what's ahead, but I think I've thoroughly, the kind of learnings I've had being an entrepreneur is massive, and I will not trade this for anything, because I have grown. While I learned so much when I was at Kwan, but what I've learned as being an entrepreneur, running this entire business, managing these kids, uh, you know, managing teams and salaries, and PNL and finances, and
Yeah.
of course the wonderful artists that I work with. I think it's been very
Wonderful.
very interesting. I wouldn't
Wonderful.
trade the learning and the high for anything else.
What is CHNO's full form?
CHNO's full form, basically it's inspired from the chemical formula of adrenaline, which basically means which is basically adrenaline which is released in your body when you play games.
Yeah. Okay. Ah.
Basically the rush.
And why gaming of all the spaces to go into? Because there's a lot of scope in digital, different things. I mean, everybody now talks about gaming as if they always knew it was going to be the next big thing. So
I mean, you and I have had that discussion a lot of times before. But I think gaming was the start. See, when I moved out, I of course figured for a while as to what I wanted to do, and always wanted to produce, and I always wanted to, because having done content even at Kwan, I knew that while as an agent you can do a lot. I think wanted to see the other side on how to produce and what as a producer. But obviously, when you work with talent, you understand the nitty-gritties and the details of how you can put all of this together and package it, etc. Which I thought is a beautiful thing to do, and not a lot of people could do. And I happen to meet a lot of people within the gaming ecosystem, and I realized that the industry is still at a very very, and I'm talking about 2 years back when PUBG
hmm,
has just started to break
hmm,
out rather. And I realized that this ecosystem might need a lot more than what it is currently. So it
yeah.
was a great time to get in. We are not a hardcore esports company. We're a gaming entertainment company, and that's why it's easier. That's why we could work with someone like you, because you do comedy and we do gaming, and comedy and gaming, I would say, are just parallels to each other. To some extent, audiences are similar.
Hmm.
Age groups can depend on what is your content type, but I would say the idea has always been that how do you take one uh, tentacle of the pop culture and you evolve it and make it into a larger industry. uh, while gaming is still up and coming right now, everybody's talking about gaming being very very big, which is true. I think from an content and from a uh, from a entertainment perspective, there's so much more that one can do, and
Hmm.
which are the kind of discussions you and I have had multiple times with other people also in the past. But the idea has always been that how do you bring, see, also just going back to the entire thing, we're a country which loves entertainment, right, in any format, whether it's through comedy, whether it's through our films, whether even it's through music, or whether it's through games. So some of the most popular games in the country are also heavily skewed towards entertainment. And
Yeah.
I think the core, so I wouldn't call ourselves as a gaming company. I think we're a entertainment company with hardcore focused on gaming and comedy. And that's what I understand. That's where my insights come from. Working with with people like you, wherein we are constantly on a daily basis discussing consumers. We're daily basis discussing what are the patterns of people watching. You working with some of the best teams, whether at YouTube or any of these
Yeah.
platforms. Uh, and you're constantly knowing what is the consumer watching, what is the consumer consuming, how are they engaging, how are they interacting, and all of these are all part of the entire I would say content ecosystem that we talk about. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand the insights from consumers and kind of work towards it.
Here's what's interesting to me. Okay. And this is my tough question for you, the only one I have. Okay. Uh, um, what we are essentially doing, and this is a moral question because it keeps me up at night sometimes, right, where I'm like, I am part of the spearhead of cultural change as far as comedy is concerned. And now with gaming also, what the decisions that creators take right now will impact creators and the way consumers think for years and years to come. We are in that nascency space, even when it comes to gaming, if you ask me. um, Invariably the responsibility of developing these subcultures ends up being that of companies, right? And companies invariably have a profit motive. And then I wonder how much of what we're doing will actually benefit with the scene at large, and how much of it is profit motivated and is harmful for the scene at large. You know,
Okay.
because by virtue of being a business, you are, and it's not anybody's fault. It's like businesses are have to look at things through the lens of a business, which is key. How do we make money here? Because that is a profit motive and continuity are important factors of any business. जो मेरे को 12th standard में सिखाया था. So, like, how do you balance that? Because we are making decisions, and sometimes I wonder, do we even know if this is the right decision to be making creatively that can impact, especially because of the age group involved, such young people.
So 2-3 things. I think you've asked me multiple questions. So let me kind of try and address, them
I
one
told you
by
it's
one.
a tough question. 16 marks, so it has to have more than one question. Right?
Absolutely. I'll try to attempt as many questions, sub questions as possible. So first of all, I think the first answer, the first thought that comes to my mind when you ask me this is somewhere also led to the point that you and I discussed with a lot of creators as to what is the kind of content that needs to go up, right? What is right and what is wrong. And I think I would always say balance, right? You can't be too extreme, and you can't be you can't be too extreme on either of the sides, right? And when I say balance, I mean that a balance of what you want to do and what the audience wants to hear. Of course, keeping in mind the filters of certain cultural context, respect for your audience, male, female members of the audience, etc., and your basic guidelines. So the first important thing is balance in terms of the content that you approach. Second, your question of companies making profit out of content that is being created
I mean, that
by
is to the nature of it only. But like,
huh,
is it
but
moral? Like the companies developing the culture. I mean, if companies are the ones developing culture now, as
so
opposed to
let
it
me
just
correct you
yeah.
here, Akash. It's not the companies anymore. We are in an era or a generation of people which is about heroes, right? About characters becoming, and of course, it's always been there. It's more now with so much of digital across around us, right? With all these apps, etc. But it's basically the heroes that are creating subcultures. Instagram is just a platform, or YouTube is just a platform. It's Akash that I'm watching, or it's a Prajakta that I'm watching, or it's a Malika Dua I'm watching, or XYZ, or it's a Tanmay Bhatt I'm watching, or it's any of the news anchors. That we are still talking about the characters or the heroes, right? So the responsibility still lies with the individuals who are coming in performing their acts or talents in front of it through these platforms. Companies will make profit when those individuals are liked by the audiences. Companies will not make profits if those individuals do not continue to feed what audiences wants to. Also, the second part to this is you will also create what the audience wants to. Yes, of course, you can go and say that we will create maybe voyeuristic content, if the audience wants to. But no, that's not what we're talking about, right? That's a completely different. That's out of moral, whatever this thing. But I think the question is that ultimately we will create what the audience wants to see, whether it's
And
in company or an
but do you feel
individual.
that also? I feel very morally. I mean, and I've told you this. We've had this discussion offline many times where I feel so guilty. Where I'm like, am I just like the whole point of doing this was to have that I had something to say, and now I just have to say things that other people want to hear. And I mean, you've
No,
explained it to me in way nicer ways. But if you could also explain it to the people listening, in
no, but
terms
that's
of
where the balance point comes in, right? We
right,
go back to the same point that you will do some things which you like, because ultimately we are here to listen to you, or be entertained by your content. But we will also want to get insights, but we would also expect you to get insights from our lives and then create jokes around it.
yeah. So AMF भी
uh,
करने का और पॉडकास्ट और स्टैंड अप वीडियो भी डालने का.
why not?
Except AMF, as long as people can pay for it.
Yeah, we're changing. Our paying patterns are slowly changing again
Yeah,
as the heroes become bigger, is when things are going to change.
I rue the day. that they start considering comedians as heroes. I think that's the last
They're
thing that
already
any
there,
of us
of
want to
course.
be. It's the last thing we want to be is a
By
hero.
heroes, I mean, by heroes, I don't, I mean, I think,
Even a cultural hero. I mean, if my cultural legacy is Napa wale, I mean, I need to do more.
see, heroes are in families also, Akash. I don't think so. You know,
Hmm.
you are by hero anybody in a group of five people, right?
Hmm.
If there's one person who stands out and who's able to entertain the other four, that the fifth person becomes the hero, and it's
Hmm.
as good as that. I mean, by heroes, you don't have to be a. Uh, Everybody will not become a Shah Rukh Khan. Shah Rukh is one,
Hmm.
but I'm just saying
Look
that.
at Anshu blush. For no reason, she is blushing. This
Well,
is
you
the
know the other
impact.
names that I will blush on, but yeah, Shah Rukh
This is
Khan you
the
can't replace.
impact that Shah Rukh Khan has had on a generation of men and women. My mom
Yeah.
also does the same thing. I don't understand what the fuck y'all are blushing about. वो नहीं बैठा है room में. But I feel like with the COVID thing going on, I think we are at the precipice of a fundamental change in which everything will work forever. We thought it would be done by now. The changes would end by now, but they are not going to end anytime soon. I see another year and a half of ups and downs, of insane changes in how we consume things, in insane changes in how we like just completely defining what it means to be social. Like, I was just bitching about this on the Discord ka radio. Ki last 2 months I have never said I'll see you there so many times and not meant a physical place. You know what I mean? Like, I'll see you on the Discord server. It's not a place. We're not gonna go there.
I feel you. I was just before the podcast, I was watching the rough cut of your vlog,
Yeah.
and I saw that reaction when you went on stage, and when people clapped, and
Yeah.
that reaction of yours, and I was like, okay, that should have been zoomed in, you know, and there would have been tears in Akash's eyes.
Yeah,
Genuine,
definitely. It was just,
genuine.
yeah, 2 3
And I was
days of
like,
just crying. Like, even at Habitat, I was आंखों में नमी, हंसी लबों पे, एकदम fully.
and I guess, I mean, I feel you, especially for, artists like you, because it's like for what work is to me, right? Like I would generalize my work. For you, stage is that. And
Hmm.
I feel that, what it would have done to you, missing it for all these months and days. But I hope the worst is over and we're hopefully getting the vaccine.
Yeah, but I don't think we're getting the vaccine anytime soon. And if they give it to us, they'll ask us to get some new bloody card or some shit for it. I'm telling you, they'll be like, "Oh, vaccine चाहिए तो ये लीजिए, ये completely not compulsory card और ये नहीं हुआ तो vaccine नहीं मिलेगा पर ये card compulsory नहीं है." ऐसा कुछ बोल देंगे वो लोग. Uh, yeah, that's while as we come to the end of this, I just wanted to ask you because you are the right person to ask. There are a bunch of creators right now who are completely lost in terms of where they stand in their place in this scheme of things. Sometimes it gets depressing watching on YouTube because the audience seems to be interested in watching the same 12 people every day, and that can really get to you as a creator. And what do you tell your creators right now, or me included, to what message do you give these people? What do you ask them? What are the signs you look at to find the next thing that you need to be doing right now?
I think at this point of time, when the audience, especially for stand-up guys,
Hmm.
or I mean, yeah, it would be actually very different for stand-up guys and creators. But let me just
Please,
do
Anshu,
GN.
this is watched by all kind of creators. Okay,
Okay,
everyone
okay. I
except
would
for
say,
stand-up comedians watch this show.
oh, then fine. Then I know the audience. I would say the creators. I think. See, I mean, this is applicable everywhere, but
Hmm.
I mean to everyone. But I would say just that one strong insight of what your audience wants to see is very, very important. While you can put up videos every week, you can do stories, I think finding that one strong insight from your audience and then creating content around it is the key. That's I mean, of course, your own style and your own messaging and how what you say, what you say and how you say is important. But if any of this, if these months would have if there's something that you'd like to do now, is to find that one strong insight of your audience which you connect with, because that you connecting is also equally important, right? And then create content rather than going saying ye gaming kar raha hai aur wo streaming kar raha hai aur ye interviews kar raha hai aur wo cricket kar raha hai. Rather than doing that, I think there is enough and more place for everybody in to be in. But again, I'll go back to saying you need to find that balance of what is that insight from your audience's life that you will pick up, create interesting entertainment around it or interesting content around it, and then put it out through your own channels, whatever your channel be. Of course, a lot of it, and I would say the second thing is, I would say data never goes wrong. So I'm a huge, one of the things that I've learned during these last 2 years is that data is a great indicator of what and how things can be done. So never go wrong with your data. It will help you say and do a lot of things. So when you get feedback on your algorithms, on your insights, etc., take them seriously. Sit with somebody who can help you carve out those insights and to be able to do this thing. So rather than going and doing 10 things, if you can actually work on your insights and create 2 interesting videos, that will really help.
Man, good. That's if you're watching this, this is the advice I don't take. So take it and
Yeah.
see your life improve. Trust
Basically,
me.
you're saying that I don't listen to Anshu, but yeah, you all listen.
Y'all should, because I am slow. So when Anshu tells me one thing, it takes me 6 months to implement. If you can implement within 2 months, then you are already in lead. I mean it. I think this is the thing. Anshu thinks I actively don't listen to her. The thing is, I
100%.
actively listen to her. My brain does not listen to me. That is the problem. I'm telling you, these creative people now, they're all temperamental and they only love themselves. What else did you say?
100%. 100%. Self-obsessed.
मेरे जैसे दरिया दिल आदमी को. But hey man, Anshu, this has been a great conversation. I don't know what you were worried about. This was so insightful.
I was not worried. I was just worried as to मैं कुछ ऐसा कुछ नहीं बोल दूं जो मुझे बोलना नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं, वो मैं हूं ना करने के लिए. And we touched some great spots also, so to speak.
We did.
If this was a massage, you were like, no, don't press there. That's too low. Nothing good will come from there. And then I pressed on the middle of your back and you said, ah, this is the equivalent of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my life with Aakash.
Exactly. All the bad jokes are saved for the team.
Bad jokes and with my almost no reaction face.
Yes, this is what I look for. I was supposed to meet Anshu and I would have tried to do this in person. But every now and then she gets a cold and cancels on plans. This has been going on for 6 months now.
Don't talk about colds. It's scary to talk about cold right now.
You said it yesterday and I got a cold last night.
Yeah, I had an allergy attack. That's precisely what it is.
She had an allergy. That is this time's excuse. Hopefully by the next time you hear an Aakash Mehta and Friends podcast, I will have met Anshu finally.
We will.
Yes. Okay, that was Anshu. Thank you so much for being on. Quickly, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping for you all. Guys, remember, the Discord server is up. All the rewards for all the AMF patrons, they go into the Discord server now. So come there and you will get AMAs with all the guests and all of that. Akashvani Radio happens on Discord 4 times a week, so you can come and just listen to some songs and us chilling. And new stand-up videos will come out at the end of the month. That is end of December. Okay, because November में shoot करेंगे, December से start करेंगे. So as AMF ends, stand-up will start. मतलब जिस चीज़ से चैनल धीरे धीरे मर रहा था वो जाएगा और फिर ऐसा नया लाइफ ब्लड, एक ऐसा रास्ते पे से सोते हुए आदमी का खून चुरा के बाटली डाली जाएगी चैनल में ताकि वो फिर से जिंदा हो जाए. Thank you for listening to Aakash Mehta and Friends. Thank you so much, patrons. We'll be back next week with yet another episode, or maybe this week with yet another episode. But yet another episode will come. See you. Bye bye.